I got hooked on Prove It. That's my song. There's a lot in there that says how to live, makes a statement. The nice thing about it is seeing it in 78 is we got to see that version of it, which has never been done live except for a few times a few years ago. Makes that song very special and unique to me. But Darkness, though, just fit the time of when I was growing up with what was happening. I was leaving my hometown of Iowa, to go to Iowa City. My folks had just gotten divorced. It was like venturing out on my own. And a lot of that music, I mean, it just related to what I was going through.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and joining me tonight is a new friend. He reached out to me, Chris Nierling, emailed me and said, "Hey, I want to be on the podcast. I've got some stories to tell." So that's all it takes to be on the show. Chris, welcome.
How you doing?
I am great. So tell us a little about yourself.
I live in Ocala, Florida, Bellevue, Florida. I've been here for 40 years. I grew up in Iowa. Um, I started with Bruce in 78, and I've been hooked ever since.
Well, that sounds I like that. I like that a lot. No, see, normally I grew up in Jersey is where I get a lot of people that So I love that it's Iowa. Well, before we get to the regular show, Chris, I got to ask you, how are you been doing during the pandemic? Everything okay?
Yeah, I run a carpet cleaning business, myself and my daughter, and it didn't bother us a bit.
Oh, that's good.
Yep, we didn't slow down. We just kept right on going.
Well, everyone's at home, so they're looking at the dirty carpet, going, "We need this clean."
Yeah. Um, I'm in Florida, so we're not locked down and
Okay.
going through all the other stuff that other states are.
Okay. Very good. Well, cool. Well, tell me, growing up, you said you grew up in Iowa. What kind of with your family was your family into a lot of music? Did your parents love music?
My dad, not really. It was more like Neil Diamond. My mom was Moody Blues, a little bit of the Doors and stuff. Um, Not much though. I was the oldest, so I wasn't didn't have like an older brother or sister to turn me on to some of this.
Yes.
So a lot of it was by the time I left high school, 77, and moved to Iowa City, I got exposed to a lot more.
So,
We
did
didn't have a radio station per se.
yeah? Oh, so okay, you didn't have a small station you listened to.
No, no.
Yeah. Were you? We talk a lot about this. Do you have younger brothers and sisters?
Yes.
And were you an influence on them?
Yes.
Okay, very nice. That's very good. Cool. So, you mentioned you moved to a different city, and you've already mentioned Bruce. But what led you to finding new music, and and what kind of music were you exploring?
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we grew up with. It's just
Mhm.
without having like a real rock station that we could listen to, it wasn't until I got out of Cresco that I got into stuff. Although Bruce was exposed to me just by a friend of mine that had older brothers.
Mhm.
Um, and we drove around listening to Darkness hour after hour.
And is that because of your friend's brother is like, "Oh, you guys should listen to this"?
That's too long ago.
Okay, I understand that feeling. Uh, so I graduated high school in 1977.
Okay, me
So
too.
okay, so
Same
yeah,
age.
okay, so we're the same age. Yes, that was a long time ago. Absolutely. Well, go back to that time, and can you think about it, articulate what about his music spoke to you?
I got hooked on Prove It. That's my song.
Okay.
There's a lot in there that says how to live,
Okay.
makes a statement. The nice thing about it is seeing it in 78 is we got to see that version of it, which has never been done live except for a few times a few years ago, which
Yeah.
makes that song very special and unique to me. Um, but Darkness, though, just fit the time of when I was growing up with what was happening. I was leaving my hometown of Iowa, to go to Iowa City. My folks had just gotten divorced. Um, it was like venturing out on my own,
Okay.
literally.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of that music, I mean, it just related to what I was going through.
Yeah. Were you going off to go to school? Were you getting a job? What was leaving
Um,
you out of town?
I went to University of Iowa for a summer and then into the year, and I just could not get into school. It just wasn't my thing. So I started. I was a receiving clerk for a drug chain, like a Walgreens type chain for about
Sure.
50 stores,
Okay.
and then getting into a little trouble here and there. I ended up coming to Florida with my folks because they had a carpet cleaning business in Gainesville, and I joined that.
Okay. And kind of have made a career out of it.
Exactly. 40
Oh.
years later, yes, I would say so.
That is awesome. That is very cool. Um, so you talked about "Prove It All Night" just kind of spoke to you, and "Darkness" album at all. Once you started hearing that, did you go and try to find other Springsteen albums? I'm like, talk to me about once you heard that. What was the next step in your journey?
Once I moved to Florida and started cleaning, I had money to be able to. I got into collecting,
Okay.
major collecting. If it had Bruce's name on it, it went into a room.
Yeah. And you talked a little about that in your email. So, do you still have stuff from that original, like when you first started buying and collecting? Do you still have a lot of that material?
Yes. I built, I had everything in like a 7x7 closet. I mean, literally everything.
Yeah.
I got to be too much. I still have the Blinded by the Light sleeve and the 45. I eventually found the poster from the Iowa City show. That was my first show. So that with a ticket. Um, I have all my tickets and stuff, but a lot of the stuff that I collected, Michael took.
Hmm.
This friend of mine that ended up buying, who, by the way, I guess you know who he is.
And that is who?
Michael Glazier, the guy from Germany.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mentioned to him that I was going to be on the podcast, and he says, "Yeah, I know who you are. Who you were." And he would kind of shied away from because of his English. I'm like, Michael, you got to do it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. He's got to. Like, we can take the time. Yeah, I'd love to have that.
yeah,
Um, you know, you mentioned seeing your first time. When was that show?
6/13/78, Iowa City,
Nice.
Iowa, Hampshire Auditorium.
Yeah. And I always I have that's one of my regrets, Chris, is I did not really discover Bruce till 1980 when a friend of my wife's moved back. She had gone to school on the East Coast, came back talking about this guy Bruce, and I ended up buying The River, and that's the first I'd heard of him. Um, though vaguely, I do remember I was at a concert, and they were playing Darkness as they were building the stage, and my date
Right.
at the time really was impressed by that album, and but I didn't really know. um, so one of my regrets is that I never saw him, when I was like 18 or 19. That I lived in Lake Charles, Louisiana, which is only 3 hours away from Houston. And I'm like, gosh, if I'd known, I could have, got to Houston and seen
Yeah.
some shows, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So I always preface this question, Chris, with, you know, the number of times you've seen Bruce is not a fair barometer of how many times you've seen, how big of a fan you are, because it just depends on how old you are, what your economic situation. But I know how many shows you've seen because we talked about before I hit record. But for my audience, how many times?
80.
Very nice. And you are wearing a shirt that celebrates that. It is a great. It is, and this was before Broadway. He was sharing with me. It says 79 shows and counting, which I love that. I love that a lot. Well, so when you shot me an email, you had quick blurbs about shows. So I'm just gonna start sharing and start me off. What story do you want to tell me first, Chris?
Okay. Probably the best one. Um, when my wife and I got together, we've been together now 18 years. She had never seen a show of anybody. She's now done 40 Bruce shows.
Very nice. Talk about turning a convert.
Yeah. She just went along. She would not ever know kind of where we were. Just we were going to a show. Probably one of the best shows we did was Miami on the Rising tour, back when the fans ran the lines.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. We were 68 and 69 in line. So, of course, we were on the stage.
Oh, nice.
And Prove It All Night, getting sweated on.
Oh, wow. You couldn't ask for any better, right?
No.
I mean, that's your song. There you're getting this.
Yep. We did Somerville together.
Okay.
Which was really cool in the fact that that's a one-off. We went both nights. I did a big donation, so I ended up being, well, actually, my wife got a hold of the editor after I had paid all the money and arranged for us to be basically front row center.
Nice.
So, you know, piano, harmonica, guitar, and 900 people in a theater was really cool.
Yeah.
We did so consequently, we got to do the pre-show meet and greet and everything. Which was cool about that was he came out of the balcony like he'd been sleeping for a while. My wife and I had gotten separated by about 6 feet. I was the third one basically to shake his hand, and I literally walked him over to my wife so that she would get the opportunity to talk to him, etc. She's messing with his hair because it was all messed up. We went down the stairs, across the bottom of the place, went back up the other side. By then, he'd worked himself through the crowd. I got the last autograph.
Oh,
That he
nice.
gave that night. The highlight of that, though, even was better in that when we went up there in the afternoon, somebody walked out of Double Take magazine. We walked in there. Now, this was a time where they had dogs sniffing for bombs and everything like that. Everything
Sure.
checked out. We went up and found the editor of the magazine, and we're talking to him. Elevator doors, a double elevator was opening and closing. I could hear Bruce doing sound check. I slipped away. I got to see Stolen Car.
Oh, nice.
Pretty much all by myself. And I know it's kind of a rare-ish song. So, yeah, that was really cool. It freaked the editor of the magazine out really bad.
Yeah, I bet.
But I had a great time.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Get back here. Get back here.
Yeah. Well, they didn't even really notice I was gone until a couple minutes later. And then he was panicking. I was told.
That's funny. So I've only met him when at the book signing that happened a few years ago when he had his autobiography out, and I stood in line for my couple of hours in Austin, and got to tell 3 seconds with him. How long did you get to talk to him at the meet and greet?
A minute or two, kind of deal. Not very, because he kept moving through the crowd.
Sure.
I have actually met him a few times. I got his autograph in Miami on Ghost of Tom Joad. After that show, he wouldn't sign autographs, but I said, listen, my 3-year-old daughter knows who you are, etc. Sign it to her. So I got him to sign it to Jordan. I spelled her name with a Y, and I told him how to spell it, and he wrote it out.
Oh, nice.
I went to Asbury Park one time on a Memorial weekend where Nils played the Stone Pony. He played that night with him, but Bruce played in the park that afternoon.
Okay.
And I rolled through there, so I got to meet him there. I got clothes, pictures of that kind of thing. So yeah, I've gotten a couple times where I've met him, and I've had a couple times where I've missed the opportunity too.
Sure, like yeah,
like all of this.
Yeah. So, you mentioned you've been at a couple of shows that are memorable. For example, Tampa.
after Danny.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that.
It was pretty emotional kind of thing. Michael had come over from Germany,
Hmm.
which he has done a number of times. Um, but it was just, I mean, my hope. Those were the shows. Those couple three right there all together. I also took all my kids to,
Okay.
so it was a family deal.
Hmm.
And it was like to me more personal than anybody else because I've been in Bruce that long. Like losing a family member kind of thing.
Yeah. And you, how did you meet Michael?
I decided one year to sell the collection. I
Okay.
just didn't want to do it anymore. Um, and it needed to go somewhere that, I just needed to part with some of it.
Hmm.
So I started eBay and stuff, and he started buying stuff. And then we started talking, and he wanted to buy the whole thing, and I didn't really want to do that because part of the collection is it's an investment. That's what
Right.
you do it for too down the line. But he took about 3/4 of everything that I had, and it all went to Germany.
Wow.
Another big portion of what I had, magazine wise and literature and stuff, went to, is it Monmouth University where
Yes, it is. Yeah.
the Bruce Springsteen collection? I'm a charter member of that. I was dealing with Bob Crane for a
Hmm.
long time. He was buying stuff, and I was also sending stuff there. So a lot of my stuff is in there. And back in the day, we did tape trading.
Right.
Okay, so I had a massive cassette tape collection from the very beginning, like through whatever.
Yeah.
Which I then converted to MP3 when that technology came out, and I shipped actually boxes um, that fit 4 gallons jugs in them of
Yeah.
tapes to Australia to a guy so he could start his collection.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, it just that way. I mean, that's just the way it kind of worked. We all traded stuff. Um, when I didn't want to have all the CDs and the MP3s anymore, I just boxed them all up and I sent it to the collection.
Very nice. What's the oldest piece of memorabilia that you still have?
The blinded by the light sleeve, and
Okay.
but there is some stuff. I've got T-shirts and stuff like that put away. I'm just looking around the room, going, "What's the oldest stuff I
Yeah,
got?"
exactly. What
Oh, my tickets. The ticket from the '78 show is probably the oldest thing I got. Plus
yeah,
the poster I found. It's
yeah.
actually original.
That's very cool. Um so talk about you said you were there when 41 Shots was played for the first time.
Atlanta,
Yes.
along with further on up the road.
Right.
Um, I did a lot of shows I got into doing, just concerts in particular. I'm a concert fanatic, so I've been to pretty much everybody.
Okay.
I did audio through a lot of shows along
Hmm.
with Bruce. I also did Bruce video. Um, those were shows that I got on tape. So they're world premiere songs, and I got to record them.
Very nice.
Yeah. I've probably made about 14 videos, and I've made 14 to 20 audio shows.
Yeah.
So I've been told some of the some of the videos are not out there. They need to be converted. If anybody wants to help me do that project, I'd like some help.
Absolutely.
Um, but I've done some cool things with that too. Example, video wise, I did an indie show from very close. Um, and he pulled the fan up on stage to play with him. And it went out on to the network, did anybody do the show? So my tape ended up with this fan. So down the line, he can pull it out when he says to his kids, "Yeah, I got to play with Bruce." And they go, "Oh, yeah, right." He can show them.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And
I got busted in Orlando video wise.
yes, talk to me about that.
They took me downstairs into the big layout where all the food was and everything, talking to me that I shouldn't be doing this. And at the time, I had a Jersey shirt on that had just strictly Jersey dates. And the only way that you could have that at that time was to have been there, which I was.
Yeah.
So they're like, "You know what the deal?" I said, "Listen, all I do is my own stuff. I don't believe in bootlegging, which I never have. We share the music. We share the live stuff. That's all I've ever believed in. So they took my the video camera and they took my tape and said, come back after the show. You can have it back. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm down in this room and they're yapping at me. But when they took me back to deposit me back into the crowd, they took me up the side of the stage. So I'm like an inch at a time step as I'm going up the stage ramp and then down the front of the stage so I could be on the side of the stage for as long as I possibly could.
Yes, absolutely.
So that was very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I have also made some of my videos. There's a couple that have been made into DVDs. It's called the Nierling Collection Volume 1, Volume 2. The really cool thing that I've done though is the Atlanta Soundcheck.
Talk to me about what that is.
Okay, it's a sound check from 1988, Tunnel of Love. It was done at the Omni. Back in the day when I was doing tapes, we were walking around the Omni one day and, $20 got us in. We were behind the stage, so we laid down on the floor. I put the microphones between two chairs, and the band slowly came on. They did just messing around for a while, and then they did a 45-minute sound check of cover songs. The only Bruce song they did was Tunnel of Love, which was the last thing they played as the doors were opening and people were coming into the arena. I had no clue as to what I had on this thing.
Yes.
But basically we left the arena and the lady's like, you can't leave, your ticket's no good. And I'm like, okay, fine. Went out, put the thing in the car and started listening to it. And I got a crowd. What is this? It's the sound check. I sent it out to about 6 people. It literally went around the world. Somebody in Italy bootlegged it onto a record with the cover shot of Bruce walking through the empty arena type of deal. A girl that I traded with a lot, lived in Chicago, told the Stone Pony in London that I had done it. They sent me the copy.
Oh,
so
nice.
I got a copy of my album that I made. Now, what really is cool is reading Ken's daily blogs on songs.
Yes.
He did Lucky Day the other day, which is a song Bruce has done like once.
Right. And hold on just a minute, Chris. For those of you who don't know, obviously this is Ken Rosen's, who's does a daily blog on, basically this day in Bruce Springsteen history, and he also does covers and where the bands are. So absolutely mandatory website to go up to on a daily basis. So go ahead, Ken.
Okay, so he
Good,
did
Chris.
Lucky Day the other day.
Right.
I didn't really realize what's on the album because when I've seen the album listing of the songs on the album itself, it'll say unknown.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it wasn't all figured out. Okay, so I'm reading Lucky Day, and I got down to the bottom. It says he played it one time on this date in March, and it's the recording that I made.
Wow.
So literally, the only recording of this song, I happened to be in the right place at the right time. So it got me curious. I asked Ken then after that, I said, what's on that record? And he said, most of it is 1-offs and 2-offs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I just found this out like 32 years after I made the damn thing.
How funny.
I was thrilled.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Now, you mentioned you've brought your lovely bride to 40 shows, and you've mentioned your kids. Are they Springsteen fans as well?
My wife is. My kids, yes and no. My daughter more than the other 2 kids, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I can only imagine the excitement of like that Atlanta sound check. I mean, that long of a 45 minutes, a lot of covers. That must have been just a thrill to hear that.
Well, the thing is we're the only 2 guys in the place that are unauthorized.
Right.
There's people in the ushers and things like that. But I mean, it was so crystal clear because nobody was there. I mean, I can visually see it still.
Yeah.
There's not, you forget things after a while on some stuff, but
yeah.
yeah, I was thrilled to be, laying there. And then when I knew what I had, when I was listening to in the car, the clarity of it, yeah, I knew I was thrilled
That's awesome. That's
because it's something that, we were the only two in there. So it was there another unique show, I guess, like
right.
Stolen Car at Somerville was.
Hmm.
Realizing now what I saw with these one-offs and two-offs, yeah, I got a very unique concert.
Yeah, that sounds great.
For
That sounds
sure.
great. Now, you mentioned that you have a YouTube page where you post some of these videos and sound clips, right?
Yes.
How where can we find that?
Under my name, Chris Nierling.
Okay. And so if you do a Google search, that's ChrisNierling on
Correct.
YouTube. Okay,
Right.
very nice.
Now I haven't been there in a while, so
Okay.
you'd have to tell me what's on it.
Oh well, that's the internet never dies,
No,
right?
I know. I know.
Yeah. Um, this is going to be a tough question for you, Chris, but think about it if you need to. Of your memorabilia, what means the most to you? What two or three things that mean the most to you?
The first concert ticket and the first coaster.
Yeah.
The Somerville stuff, my program is autographed. I have a clip, a guitar clip pick. Um, that's really the first, that was very intimate with my wife, so that's very
Yeah.
memorable there. Um, I Here's the thing, over 80 shows, I've been to some very, very unique shows. I did like on the reunion tour, I did the last 4 or 6 of the first go round in New Jersey, and then I did the last 4 in Madison Square Garden, all of
Okay.
which I taped.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of cool stuff there. When I did the New Jersey round, I was walking around with a video camera the next day, and I've got friends now in New Jersey that I've had for 20 years because of me making a tape and walking around. They're like, "Hey, you want to eat? Come on," type
Oh,
of
that's
thing.
great. Yeah.
Um, when I hauled Sharon around, she would never know where we're at. We'd be in an airport, waiting for hours to get on
Mm-hmm.
a plane instead of, going to
Yeah.
a hotel and just things like that. Um, Stuff that that's hard to say. I went after stuff collecting wise now that has some meaning to it.
Right.
After the Miami show, on the Rising tour, my little brother, who's not around anymore, worked at a place called Pearls, which is a restaurant, and Little
Okay.
Steven showed up there. Um, the bandana that my brother had on was signed. Little Steven was here. They've got pictures of arm in arm, and Jason got Little Steven to write out a menu to me with his signature on
Very cool.
it, which is up on the wall. And eventually, I try to show the camera,
Yeah. Sure.
around.
Absolutely.
So when Little Steven came around a couple 3 years ago, Hard Rock and whatnot, I took that picture, I showed it to him and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He had a recollection of it, so to speak. But
Yeah.
um, it's a cool memory, and it's not because we blew the opportunity to go down to the restaurant and party with Little Steven.
Yes. Absolutely. That's great. Did what when you went to Broadway, did you get any memorabilia from that, or talk about going to Broadway?
It was cold. I'm in Florida, man. I was freezing.
I bet.
Um, I don't do a lot of collecting anymore as far as that goes. I have my
Okay.
because Michael does most of the stuff. He takes everything.
Okay.
I got a couple things here and there, but I'm not one to spend a lot of money anymore on that.
Okay.
I'd rather go see the show.
Okay.
Yeah, than
So,
anything.
all right. So I've got to ask you, what did you think? What are you thinking of Letter to You?
Um, I like Ghosts a lot.
Yeah.
It speaks to me kind of in the same way, I guess, um, past life,
Mhm.
and bringing memories there. I haven't had a whole lot of time to delve into it as far as listening to a whole lot of it yet,
Okay. Been busy
but I
working.
do like it. Like here's the thing. Western Stars, I didn't get into the first one or two hit song. I've never listened to the record. I
Okay.
just couldn't get into it. It just didn't do anything, click for me. Whereas when Letter to You and Ghost was released, it clicked right away, especially with
Okay.
Ghost.
Good.
So, totally different. To me, it's going back to the roots of stuff, which is, I think, is where he wanted to go a lot with this album anyway.
I think he did. Did you see the Western Stars film?
No,
Okay. You should check that out. It's
I
it's
know
pretty
that.
cool.
I
Yes.
know.
Yeah, I
It
know.
just, like I
That's
said, just didn't click,
yeah,
So,
I understand. Absolutely.
but here's the thing, too. I'm a big fan of Human Touch and Lucky Town.
Right.
And you get a lot of, and I'm not a big fan of Born in the USA.
Right.
I'm just not. Although Born in the USA in itself and a couple of the songs on there have grown on me.
Right.
But, you know, I'm kind of the oddity here and there. I know a lot of people that don't like Human Touch, Lucky Town, and fell in love with Born USA. Born USA was a pop album. And in the
Yes.
80s, you know that, every
Sure.
band out there went pop.
Right.
Grow your audience, that's fine, but it was hard on hardcore fans or longtime fans when he changed so dramatically.
Yeah.
Now, like Born in the USA, though, I've seen so many different variations of it and how it's done. I have a huge respect for that song,
Sure.
very much so.
Do you, besides Darkness, do you have other favorite albums that that did click with you, that do mean a lot to you?
Well, like I said, Human Touch, Lucky Town, I like those songs. There's a
Yes.
lot on those. Human Touch, Brilliant Disguise. Um, um, it's not clicking.
That's okay. Better Days is one of my favorite
Better
songs.
Days, yes.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff on those two albums I like. And my wife likes a lot of that stuff too. She loves Brilliant Disguise.
Yeah, exactly. Did so you hopefully he's touring again.
Yes.
We want that to happen again. We're all after, especially for those of us who watched him on Saturday Night Live, we're like,
Good.
okay, we're ready to happen. We're ready for this to go again. Are there songs that you haven't heard live that you're still chasing with as many shows as you've been to?
No, not really. Because I've gone back and looked at what I've seen, compared on stuff, and I have seen a hell of a lot of songs.
Yeah.
All the songs that I grew up with, obviously, I've never seen Darkness played in full or Born to Run. Well, no, I take that back. I saw Born to Run. I went to Nashville and took my daughter up there.
Okay.
But Darkness, I've seen everything played. The first 2-3 albums, I've seen them all played, and I did get to go to Buffalo and see Greetings played front to back.
Yes.
So, and from the front too,
right,
front of the audience. So I've seen pretty much. There's not really anything that I can think of. Some of my favorite songs, like Human Touch, Back in Your Arms, I love that song, and I've been able to see that a few times. Blood Brothers, obviously he played Blood Brothers a little differently at Tampa, and he also played Blood Brothers hugely different on the last reunion show.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I've gotten to see those kind of things with the shows I've been to, those unique little rarities.
Mm-hmm. So what have I not asked you that I should have, Chris?
Hell, I don't know.
Well, I didn't know if maybe there was another story that I had forgotten to ask you about.
Let me look over my crib notes that I sent you.
That sounds great. Yes.
No.
Okay. I did now. Do you still have a couple of guitars signed by him?
Yes.
Or did all those go? Okay. That would be tough.
No. Okay. I have 2 electrics. One is signed by him only. It's dated 2000. My acoustic, I let Michael take with him.
Mm-hmm.
I have, this is all leading up to the other guitar. Yeah. I have the first 7 albums all signed. Mm-hmm. I have Born in the USA full band from that area. I have Greetings signed full band from that era.
Oh,
and
wow.
Vinny wrote on it when Vinny signed it, he dated it 71. Bruce signed it from Asbury Park with love, Bruce Springsteen.
Nice.
Okay. I have a full band guitar from the reunion era. So it's a little different as far as band members, obviously. But Bruce signed it from Asbury Park with love, Bruce Springsteen. So I have a 71 album with that signature and a 2000 some guitar with the same inscription.
That's cool.
It is. It's very cool.
That's very nice. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And for those of you who can't tell, we have video going on. This is an audio podcast, but after we finish recording, he's going to give me a quick tour. But just from the background, you can see framed stuff and guitars holding, and it looks like his man cave, or his Bruce shrine looks awful good.
Listen, this is really funny. My stuff has been mostly put away because where my man cave is now has been dead.
Okay.
My desk in the office was in the back room shared with the grandkids' playroom.
Okay, right.
So I had some stuff on the wall. So Sharon wanted her bedroom back. So my office came out here to the man cave and everything came off the wall. What I found out was I got more space in this room to hang stuff up. So I literally took advantage of every bit of wall space.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. All right. Before we get to the Mary question, any final thoughts you want to share, Chris?
Bruce's music has played a lot in my life, a lot of meaning up and down, hard times and good times, both. I can go back and play songs and it'll take me back to different places and times through my life. And if I've needed pick me up, I go back to darkness. I mean, obviously that album's a little bit on the dark side, so to speak.
Sure.
But it goes back to fighting for yourself and don't let anybody give you any crap. That's what prove it means. You got to go out there and do it every day. It's been a part of my life with my business. I built a business where I'm 26 years and what I'm doing as far as my business. I've been doing my profession for 40. But you got to go out there and do the job every day the right way, or you're not going to succeed. You got to go out and do the job with your family every day, or you're not going to succeed. And that's like with Prove It, that's what hooked me.
I think well said. And I love that, Chris. I've shared this often on the podcast that, Better Days is the song that speaks for me. I believe that too many people do not enjoy the journey. They think about, well, when I get a raise, then I'll be happy. When the kids get out of diapers, then I'll enjoy being a parent, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you got to enjoy every phrase. And so Better Days means a lot to me. I've never thought about Prove It All Night that way, but as you share that, I think that's really beautiful and really insightful, because it is a call to arms to say, you have to prove it, and every day you've got to prove it again, especially as you talk about with a job and with a marriage. Linda and I have been married 35 years, and it's people ask like, "Oh, that's really impressive," and it was a lot of hard work. I mean, it's also a lot of fun and absolutely, but it is hard work to keep a relationship going that long. So yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot.
Here's the thing: if you go back, like Winterland, the anniversary is like right now of that show from 78. So that's what's in my CD player right now. And if you listen to Prove It from 78 in the conversation, he says, you got to prove it every day, all day. It's part of the monologue in there. And that's what's always stuck. Even he says that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. And that's really well done. Nicely said, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. So talk to me. For those of you who've never heard the podcast before, the Mary question. Jay Armstrong is an honors English teacher in the Philadelphia area. And every year he takes 2 days and with his seniors, they take the song Thunder Road, break down the lyrics, look at the imagery, talk about the themes, and compare it to Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken, and then he asks this class, does Mary get in the car? So, Chris, that's your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
I would say yes. She wants to go see what the ride's going to be like, what that journey is going to be like, for sure.
Good. I like that. That's a good answer. Good.
Hey,
Yes.
let's talk about Michael a little bit.
Please do.
Okay. Michael Glazer, who you have talked to, I guess, here and there, is the guy that bought my collection.
Yes.
Okay, this is what's cool about Michael, in that Bruce music brought us together. Michael's history, he grew up in East Germany. He's about 10 years younger than I am, so his collecting passion is a decade behind where I'm at, or where I was. He was part of the resistance to bring down the wall. Not the night that it happened.
Right.
The whole process leading up to it.
Wow.
He was a teacher and a photographer still. Well, he's a photographer, but they would smuggle stuff across the border and they'd go up to the school at night and print it off and distribute it. And I'm like, Michael, if you ever got caught doing this, East German police, you'd like disappear. And he's like, yeah, just gone.
Mm.
Being that he is a photographer, he documented the movement though. So once the wall fell down and I learned history about him because we started communicating so much and he wanted to build the collection and keep it together, which is really cool to me. And it's massive now. He actually had his hands on bringing down the damn thing before anybody else, that night of bringing it all down.
Wow.
Because he was part of that. Years later, then, his collaborators, they wrote a book.
Mm-hmm.
He's got about 26 or so pages in this book. Also, the town that he grew up in, they took his photography work, blew them up into gigantic museum pieces, and they have a display of his work in his town where he grew up.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So he has come over here numerous times. We've done probably 5 tours together.
Okay.
And we'll do multiple shows on those tours. We've been all over the East, up and down the East Coast and whatnot. And he actually took me to Broadway. I got myself there, but he ended up getting tickets, in Germany, and me sitting in the US.
How funny.
Didn't get tickets.
Right.
Yeah, right. So I got to go. But it's very interesting that he's become one of my great friends. And I actually know a guy that actually changed history.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Not just that night, but actually the whole time. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you should reach out to him, and if he wants, we could all three be in a conversation together. If he's less nervous, we could just get all three of us together and visit.
And I think I can get him to do that because one of the times that he was here, we went to the radio station local here and did a half-hour little conversation, and it ended up being more him talking than me because they wanted to know about this stuff. So
because I know I've shared this in the past, but I've had a couple of times where I've had people from overseas that said, well, my English isn't good enough, Jesse. And so what I did is I emailed them the list of questions I would ask, and I said, record your answers and then I'll edit it together, because that way you wouldn't be. So no, I would love to have him. I'd love to hear that story. I mean, there is a Terry Smith who does a music talk podcast, has a friend, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he was at one of those shows in Berlin that they think put pressure on, that was helping that, and wanted to talk about that story. So I would love to hear Michael's thoughts and stories. That would be amazing.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, very good.
And everything that he still buys comes to my house.
Okay.
So even though I don't collect anymore, I get to see it all.
That's
It's cheaper
nice.
for him to send it to me, and then when he comes over here, he picks it all up in a bunch of suitcases and takes it home. Also,
Eh,
German customs isn't very nice. We sent
yes.
about 40 posters over one time.
Yeah.
They destroyed the tube.
Oh no.
They
Well,
ripped it open and ripped it almost everything in half.
that is horrible.
So that's why he comes over here and gets his stuff.
Well, very nice. So Chris, are you on social media at all?
Facebook,
Okay.
pretty much it.
Okay.
I have my business and then I have personal.
So, where in Florida are you?
Bellevue, Ocala,
Okay.
which is the middle of horse country. We have
Okay.
more horses and whatnot than Kentucky.
Okay.
I'm like 50 miles south of Gainesville,
Okay.
University of Florida.
All right. Hey, I got you here. You got to go ahead and give us a pitch. If someone wants their carpet cleaned in the area, how do they reach you?
Um, well, 352-572-9184. Chris's Carpet Care on Facebook. My domain name on my website is carpetcleanocalaflorida.com, which is the search words if you put them in. I had a brilliant web designer on that one.
Very nice. Well, I mean, hey, you got to get we Bruce fans got to stick together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and hey, if you're a Bruce fan, why wouldn't you want, because you can not only get your carpet clean, but you can and swap a little pit stories. So
I
very
actually
nice.
run into people that I do that with.
Yes.
Absolutely. When I find out people have been, it's like, okay, where's the conversation going to go?
Yes, absolutely. That is great. Chris, this has been a blast. I really appreciate your time, and I hope that the three of us can sit down. You and I can sit down with Michael and talk about this, and and keep me posted when you watch Western Stars the film. Reach out to me. Go, okay, Jesse. Now I want to talk about it. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah. All right. Sounds
we
good.
could do that.
All right, listeners, you please be safe. Wash your hands. Remember to social distance. Wear an effing mask, be good to each other because heaven knows we need it. But for now, take care and we'll talk to you soon. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts as well as a Merry Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now who does, you can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. Set Listing Bruce is part of the Southgate Media podcast group. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.